Hey, welcome to the lecture series on the subject Applied Thermodynamics. This is module 4 in that part 2 Psychrometrics and Air Conditioning System. This is lecture number 11. Myself Dr. N. Satish Kumar, Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering, Canara Engineering College, Bantwal. Now let us study what are the requirements of comfort air conditioning. The following 5 factors determine the comfort feeling of the people in an air-conditioned space. So whenever you design an air-conditioned space for the comfort living, so you have to consider these 5 factors. So what are these 5 factors? One is the supply of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide. Number 2, removal of body moisture dissipated by the occupants. Number 3 is the heat removal. Number 4 is to provide sufficient air movement and air distribution in the occupied space. And number 5, to maintain the purity of air by removing odor and dust. In the coming slide, we will discuss in detail about each of these factors. Number 1, oxygen supply. Human body takes in oxygen through the system and gives out carbon dioxide. So this is all of you know that human body, so during our respiration we take oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. So normally each person requires nearly 0.65 meter cube of oxygen per hour and we produce 0.2 meter cube of carbon dioxide. The percentage of carbon dioxide in atmosphere is about 0.6% and it is necessary to maintain this level to ensure comfort for easy breathing. So whatever the carbon dioxide percentage in the atmosphere, which is about 0.6%, same percentage need to be maintained in the air conditioned space for the comfort breathing. Okay, thus the quantity of air supply to an air conditioned space should be regulated properly to see that percentage of CO2 doesn't exceed 0.6%. Heat removal. It is well known fact that human beings dissipate good amount of heat to the atmosphere during breathing. The atmosphere should be capable of absorbing the heat dissipated by the persons, otherwise discomfort exists. So whatever the heat dissipated by the people should be absorbed by the atmosphere. Okay, the sufficient circulation of air should be provided. So how it can be made possible? That is by circulation of the sufficient quantity of air through the proper ventilation system, so that there is no rise in temperature of the air in the air conditioned space. Number 3, moisture removal. A moisture loss up to 50% from human body is commonly observed. This should be properly taken into account while designing a air conditioning system. The ventilation system must be capable of maintaining a relative humidity of below 70%. So 60 to 70% is the ideal relative humidity value for the comfort living. Okay. Number 4, air movement. In addition to providing air motion, proper air distribution is very important. You see, air motion as well as air distribution. So air distribution is defined as a uniform supply of air to an air conditioned space. So air distribution is nothing but uniform supply of air to an air conditioned system. Air movement without proper air distribution is permissible for local cooling sensation known as drift. Suppose if there is air movement but without proper air distribution, so then it affects in local cooling sensation and we call technically this as drift. A velocity of about 8 meter per minute associated with the temperature differential of 1 degree C do not result in noticeable drift. So 8 meter per minute is ideal velocity with a differential temperature of 1 degree Celsius, so you cannot observe any drift or local cooling sensation. Velocities greater than this produces uncomfortable drifting conditions. Number 5, purity of air. It is important to maintain quality of air in any air conditioned space. Odor, dust, toxic gases and bacteria are considered for defining the purity of air. The various factors which makes air impure are the evaporation on the surface of the body adds odor to the air, because you know that the body smell through evaporation from the surface of the body adds odor to the air. Then smoke from the surroundings, which has a bad effect on nose, eyes and heart. The toxic gases are objectionable as they cause irritation. Now let us discuss the important air conditioning systems. So let us begin with the summer air conditioning systems. So there are two types of summer air conditioning system. One is called as that is actually depending upon the outdoor conditions. The two types of summer air conditioning system are based on the outdoor condition. So what is the first outdoor condition? That is hot and dry outdoor conditions. So when the atmospheric temperature is high and also the moisture content is less, that means it is dry. The system is used when the outdoor conditions are hot and dry. That means atmospheric temperature is higher than the comfort temperature with less moisture content. That means the relative humidity is less. You see, relative humidity is a measure of moisture content in the atmospheric air. If the relative humidity is less, that means the moisture content is also less. So now you can see the schematic diagram of the summer air conditioning system for hot and dry outdoor conditions, and also the skeleton of the psychrometric chart. So now here you have the air damper to regulate the air movement. So air from the atmosphere enters through the air damper, then it passes through the air filter. So then you have a cooling coil here, then you have a adiabatic humidifier here. So then the water suspended particles are eliminated in the water eliminator. So then air is sent to the conditioned air to the space. Okay, the air conditioned space, you have to supply this air. So atmospheric air at condition 1. So what is condition 1? That is atmospheric air, which is at higher dBT and lower RH, enters the air dampers, you can see, then passes over the cooling coil via an air filter. So up to here, right? So air at condition 1. So here it is shown here. You can see the skeleton of the psychrometric chart. So point 1 is high dBT but low RH. You see, this is the RH line, phi 1 RH line. So it is having low RH as well as temperature is very high. Now it is passing through a cooling coil. So cooling coil is maintained at a temperature of 4. But as you know that 100% efficiency of the cooling coil is not possible. So though the air passes through this cooling coil, which is maintained at temperature 2, the air coming out of the cooling coil will be at temperature 2. So the temperature of the air is reduced to condition 2 in the cooling coil. Now air enters the adiabatic humidifier. Okay, here you can see the adiabatic humidifier wherein it is humidified. So adiabatic humidification means water is sprayed, right, and it gets evaporated and induced into the incoming air. So thereby its temperature reduces. Okay, so here you can see 2 to 5 is the adiabatic humidification. If the 100% humidification is there, then it will reach the saturation point at 5, but 100% humidification is not possible, so it will end up at state 3. The air enters the conditioned space at condition 3. Okay, point 4 represents the condition of the air after passing over the cooling coil if efficiency of the coil were 100%. That is what I told you in the previous slide. The point 4 is represents the cooling coil temperature. So cooling coil temperature is maintained at 4 T4. If the efficiency of this cooling coil is 100%, so whatever the air passes through this cooling coil should be reduced to the temperature of 4, right? But it is not possible because 100% efficiency cannot be expected. So therefore the condition line 1 to 4 represents the changes in dBT of air when passes over the cooling coil, and the condition line 2, 3, 5 represents the changes of dBT of the cooled air in the adiabatic humidifier. So actual process will be from 1 initial condition atmospheric air, after cooling coil the condition will be 2, and after humidification, adiabatic humidification, the condition will be 3. So the air enters into the air conditioned space at condition 3. Now coming to the second type of summer air conditioning system, wherein the outdoor condition is hot and humid. You see, summer means usually outside air will be very hot. So here hot and humid means This system is used when the outdoor condition is hot and humid, that is like in coastal areas. So coastal areas always you can expect in summer season the temperature to be very high, but the moisture content is also very high. This is because of the more water vapor induced in the coastal belt. That means atmospheric temperature is higher, you can see it is higher, but at the same time it contains large moisture content. So moisture content is also high. So this condition eliminates the need for an adiabatic humidifier. So no need of going for an adiabatic humidifier as in case of hot and dry outdoor conditions, because air is having sufficient humidity in the beginning itself. Now this is the schematic of the summer air conditioning system for hot and humid outdoor condition. So as usual, so initially at the entry point you have the air dampers, then you have the air filter, because purity of air is very important, so it has to be passed through the air filter. So then you have the cooling coil. Okay, so I request all of you to draw this cooling coil at a bit higher level. Okay, it's in the figure, it is shown at a very low level, but you can draw it at exactly at the center. Okay, because air has to be passing through these coils. So the diagram is shown below, it is taken from some textbooks. So you keep it at higher level. Okay, then it has to be passed through a heating coil. So then this air has to be passed through the conditioned space, So atmospheric air at condition 1 enter the air filter via air damper. So first enters air damper, then air filter. So filtered air is cooled when it passes over the cooling coil at condition 3. Okay, now you see initial condition is 1, you can see dBT is high, you see this is the dBT line, and also phi1 is also high. So both temperature as well as humidity is high. Okay, so it is passed through the cooling coil. So cooling coil surface temperature may be the dPT of the air at that temperature. So if there is 100% cooling, the temperature would have been at 2 after coming out, when it comes out from the cooling coil, but inefficiency results in the condition at 3. So this is what it's mentioned, the condition of air coming out of the cooling coil is at 3. So 132 represents the changes in the dBT of air during this cooling process. 132. So 122 is the ideal process, 13 is the actual process. Now while passing over the cooling coil with an efficient coil, air would have been cooled to 2. So that is what I told you. Efficient cooling will result in condition 2, but inefficiency of the cooling coil results in condition at 3. As the air temperature is still below the required comfort condition, now it is passed over the heating coil. Since in order to remove the moisture, you see why it is passed over the cooling coil here in the beginning, mainly to remove the moisture. So when the moisture is removed, you see that 2 is the surface temperature of the cooling coil, 3 is the condition of the air obtained after cooling coil. You can see the temperature becomes very low. You can see here the dBT of the air is low. Now it is made to pass through a heating coil. You can see, right? So it is made to pass through a heating coil. So heating coil temperature is 4 or T4. Now when air passes over the heating coil, if there is a 100% efficiency in heating, then the temperature would have been at 4, but the temperature will be, actual temperature will be at 5. That because of the inefficiency. So 354 represents the changes in the dBT of air while it passes over the heating coil. So air coming out of the cooling coil is at condition 5. So actual condition is at 5. Okay. 0.4 represents the maximum temperature that could have been attained by using an efficient heating coil. That is what, if the efficient is 100%, then the temperature would have been at point, or air, the condition of the air would have been at 0.4. Now coming to the winter air conditioning system. During winter, air in the atmosphere is at lower temperature than the required condition. So unlike summer air conditioning, so winter air conditioning system, the atmospheric temperature is lower than the required comfort condition. Also the relative humidity may be more or less than the actual relative humidity required for the human comfort. So depending upon the area or the geographical location, you may have the humidity more or less than the actual relative humidity required for the comfort living conditions. So figure shows an arrangement of such a system where dry conditions prevail in the atmosphere. So we take up or we study the winter air conditioning system for a dry outdoor condition. So the schematic representation of this air conditioning system, you can see air damper, air filter. So these are the two common things at the entrance of any air conditioning system. So then it passes through a heating coil. You can see this is the heating coil. Then it is passed through a adiabatic humidifier where water is sprayed and humidity or moisture is induced into atmospheric air, and you can see the water in the sump here at the bottom, pump to spray, and the water is actually this arrow mark is should be in the reverse direction here. Okay, water is taken from the sump and okay, should be like this arrow mark also. Okay, should be in the reverse direction, and makeup water is taken, okay, supplied, and it will be maintaining sufficient level of water in the sump. Then again it is passed through a water eliminator. So whenever you are going for adiabatic humidification by spraying water, so you have to go for the water eliminator, because suspended particles of water from this air entering into the conditioned space has to be removed. So then you have to pass it over a heating coil. Okay. So cold air from atmosphere is filtered in an air filter before it passes over the heating coil. So first is the heating coil, you can see here. Air at condition 1 is heated to condition 3. So from 1 you can see initial condition, right? So low temperature, dry condition here 1. Then it would have been 3 after passing over the heating coil, right? However, due to inefficiency of the heating coil, it ends up at condition 2. See, it is given here. It should have been heated to 3, but due to losses it will be at 3. So 1, 2, 3 represents the changes in the dBT of air while passing it over the heating coil. Now hot air at 2 at this condition, which is the exit of the heating coil, enters the humidifier and it is cooled to 4. You can see here. So ideal humidification would have been at 5, but actually it is cooled to 4 while passing it over the adiabatic humidifier. Now here any water particles suspended in the air is removed by the water eliminator. So that is what I told you earlier. So whenever air passes over the adiabatic humidifier, so whatever the suspended water particles, so that has to be removed by passing over the water eliminator. So as the humidity and temperature of the air have still not reached the comfort condition, so air is heated again up to 0.7 by another heating coil. So though you used an heating coil in the beginning, so you increase the temperature of the air to 0.2. Since it is made to pass over a adiabatic humidifier, so again its temperature reduces to 0.4. So what you have to do is, once again you have to pass it through an heating coil to make it to heat up to 0.7, but it won't get heated up to 0.7 because of the losses. So the final conditioned air will be at 0.6, wherein it will be entering into the conditioned space. Now last topic of this chapter is the cooling towers. So cooling tower is an important part of the power plant. A cooling tower is a heat exchanger inside of which heat is withdrawn from the water by contact between water and the air. So mainly these cooling towers are used in power plants. The heat transfer occurs through the heat exchanger between air and water and through the evaporation of a small part of the water that needs to be cooled, because evaporation results in much faster cooling of the air, because during evaporation so it absorbs a large quantity of latent heat, thereby the temperature of the water gets reduced. This will allow to cool down to a temperature lower than the ambient temperature, which is an important advantage compared to the dry coolers. The basic working principle of cooling tower is to cool the hot water with the help of atmospheric air. So this is a basic working principle. Cooling tower is to cool the hot water. So from where do we get this hot water? So that is from the boiler, okay, the condensate of the boiler. so it will be hot water, so that has to be cooled using a cooling tower with the help of atmospheric air. So it is widely used in different engineering sector and also in the refrigeration plants. The height of the cooling tower in thermal power plant is about 9 feet or above from the ground level. A water store unit called pond is placed at the base of the cooling tower. So a pond will be there in the base of the cooling tower. In steam power plant, cooling tower first collects hot water from the condenser at a certain height from the ground level. After that, the hot water falls down by the radial spray. So you know that from the from the turbine, after steam gets expanded in the turbine, so hot steam comes out from the turbine and it is made to pass through the condenser. Now condenser makes use of the cooling water to condense this hot steam coming out of the turbine. Now when it is used to cool this steam, so what happens? The steam gets condensed, okay, and also the water which is supplied to the condenser gets heated up. Now in order to recirculate the same water, this hot water has to be cooled using a cooling tower, whereas the condensate water which is at low temperature is fed back to the boiler using a pump. So this is how a cooling tower is made use of in case of a steam power plant. So here the hot water which is collected from the condenser by the cooling tower at its base will be sprayed at a height, and it falls down by the through this cooling tower. The atmospheric air, which is comparatively cool, enters at the bottom of the tower. So usually the cooling tower, which is cylindrical in shape, so it has openings at the bottom on the periphery of the tower, so through which the cool atmospheric air enters, so that it moves from the bottom to the top, whereas the hot water which is sprayed radially at a certain height falls from the top to the bottom. Now the hot air in the cooling tower exposes in the atmospheric air, which reduces the temperature of the hot water by partial evaporation. The cooled water is collected in the pond at the base of the tower and pumped to the condenser for further use. So what happens is the condensate hot water from the condenser, which is used for cooling, directly sprayed, okay, then cooled, and then it is collected in the pond at the base of the tower, and it is pumped to the condenser for the reuse. Doing so, limited quantity of water can be used again and again. It is used such type of power plant where supply of water is limited. So especially you know that even though water is available in plenty, but it cannot be wasted, so you have to make use of this water so that it can be recycled again and again, so that a limited quantity of water can be used for the power plants. So that is why not only for the condenser, even for the boiler, so same water is circulated. That means whatever the water converted into vapor in the boiler, after expansion in the turbine, it is cooled in the condenser and it is supplied back to the boiler by using a pump. Only makeup water is taken from the river or the pond. So a similar thing is done even in the cooling tower also, which supplies cold water to the condenser to cool the steam. Now you can see the two types of cooling towers here. So one is the natural draft cooling tower and other one is the forced draft cooling tower. So the difference is, in case of natural draft, you see it is there without any external force, the air enters at the bottom of the cooling tower through the openings. So you can see here, so this is the shape of the cooling tower also. It's not perfectly vertical, so its diameter, so at the top a certain diameter it reduces like nozzle, then again it increases at the bottom, and you can see here this is the pond, or it is also called as the cold water basin. So this cold water is supplied to the condenser, and hot water from the condenser, you can see here it enters at this level and it is sprayed radially from the at this height, and it falls down, and the air entering from the bottom, so there will be heat transfer and partial evaporation of the water as well, thereby the temperature of the water reduces and air passes through the outlet by natural draft without any external force. Whereas in case of forced draft, a fan unit is placed here, you can see here. So this helps in forcing or sucking the air from the bottom of the cooling tower is whatever air entering here through the suction points, so it will be made to pass at a certain high velocity because of this suction effect created by this fan. So this is called as the forced draft cooling towers. Rest of the operations, the falling of or spraying of hot water and collection of cooling water at the bottom, remains same as that of the natural draft cooling tower. Some important factors which is essential for cooling tower to cool the water. One is the size and height of the cooling tower, temperature of the air, humidity of the air, arrangements of plate in the cooling tower, velocity of air entry of the cooling tower, accessibility of air to all parts of the cooling tower. So size and height, temperature of the air, humidity of the air, arrangements of the plate. You see the water which is sprayed at the top or some mid height of the cooling tower, now it passes, so there are many plates placed in between, right? So it falls on this plate and comes down slowly because it should not fall at once. So that is why some plates are arranged horizontally inside this cooling tower, and also the velocity of air entry into the cooling tower. So that also plays an important role, and also accessibility of air to all parts of the cooling tower, because it should be accessible to all parts of the cooling tower so that hot water gets cooled from all the regions. Now coming to the last part, the types of cooling towers. So cooling towers can be divided into two types, into different types, okay, based on the fan type, shape, water flow or efficiency, cooling tower composition. So these are the basis on which you can classify the cooling towers, that is the fan type, shape, water flow, efficiency and cooling tower composition. The main classification tends to be based on the cooling circuit type, which determines the exact operation of the cooling tower. The basic cooling tower classification tends to be based on the following criteria. One is natural or mechanical draft, other one is induced or forced draft, other one is open, closed or hybrid cooling circuits. So these are the classification or the types of the various cooling towers. Now with this I conclude the theory part of psychrometrics as a part 2 of the module 4. In the next two lectures I will be solving numericals on psychrometrics, both use of table as well as the psychrometric chart. Thank you. Bye till then.